Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, and welcome to another episode from me, Avomance, in my World Edit mini-series. Now, this is episode 4, the final of this series. Episode 1 told you how to load WorldEdit onto your computer. Episode 2 gave you some basic commands and how to use them. Episode 3 brought ways to bring structures and houses and buildings from one world into a completely different world by copying and pasting. And this one, we're going to talk about how to change the actual landscape, make things that look perhaps not so nice, like this mountain range behind me, into something that looks a little bit meta and a little bit more natural. Now, everything is in a playlist in the description below, so do go and have a look at those. Today, I am having a go at this mountain range. Now, I am not Jeracraft, I am not Fwip. If I was Fwip, this is going to look stunning by the end of it. If I was Jeracraft, it would look amazing by the end of it. I'm Avomance. I've been doing this for about 3 days, so it's going to look better. And certainly what it'll allow you to do is to see how to do it so you can apply the same rules and then you can try it yourself. Let's crack on. So this is the vista that we are going to look to change, mostly to the left-hand side, although we might delete out some of that right-hand monstrosity as well. Let's crack on. So the first thing we want to do is prepare the area a little bit. We want to remove bits that we don't really want and add in bits that we do. So removing the bits that we don't want comes first, and that includes trees, bits of rocks that stick out that you don't really want there, that kind of thing. Now to do that, we need our wand, so / wand, and or alternatively, you can just grab a wooden axe out of your creative inventory. That is not a problem. And then we're going to give ourselves a brush. So / brush, and we want a spherical brush. So brush sphere. And then we want to, what do we want to paint? We want to paint air because we're removing things. So to start off, we're painting air, and you can have this as big as 6 radius. So 6 being the big one. So if you want a big swathes of stuff, use air 6 and that will sort you out. So now anything I click on now is going to be removed and changed to air. So for example, if I click on that, you can see we can just literally take out big chunks of rock. And as a result, we've got rid of that horrible bit there. That poor pig just took a tumble. And you can see it's relatively simple to be able to do that. Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to reshape this a little bit to make it the size that I want it, and then I'll be back. So we have done quite a lot of, well, biting big chunks out of the ground, and we've done that quite randomly just to make it look relatively natural. One thing to note is that if you dig out underneath something like sand or gravel or even snow, you're going to end up with hanging snow, sand or gravel left. It doesn't update the block when you remove the block that's underneath it, so do be cautious of that. But it is a good way to make sand caves if you wanted to do that kind of thing. You get the particle effects. Anytime you update the block next to it, bang, all your sand falls down. Now what we want to do is we want to remove some of these items here but not remove any of the earth, so we've got to play with a mask. Now down in the bottom left here, you can see the command for the mask that we want to use for the moment. We want to remove the spruce trees, but we don't want to remove anything else, just the spruce trees. So we've got /mask, Minecraft spruce leaves, and Minecraft spruce log, separated with a comma. Now the game will allow you to auto-populate the first one, but you have to physically hand type the second one. You could of course put Minecraft and then use the block number, like we did before with the block code, and you have to put quote marks outside of it because then the game sees it as a single command. So if I just press that, the brush mask is set. If I then come and right click on these trees, that is just going to remove spruce trees and nothing else. And you can see here all of this snow has not been updated, like I mentioned. This spruce tree as well, let's get rid of it. These spruce trees up here, we don't want them because we're going to be terraforming around, so click on them. You don't have to be on top of them to be able to do this, but it's quite a useful way of getting rid of the spruce leaves like that, and spruce as well. Then what we can also do is get rid of the oak leaves too. So I'm going to get on and just remove some of these logs and leaves so as we've got a decent platform upon which to start building. now our area is relatively clear, and it's definitely worth spending a bit of time making sure that you get all the little bits that are potentially going to get in your way. The next thing we're going to do is to start to build things up. I've noticed I've missed a tree, so I will remove that before I move on. But next thing to do is to build things up, and the way we're going to do this is by using sand, and we're going to lob basically sand spheres all over the thing. The reason we use sand is because sand falls. Obviously, it's a gravity block, and when you paint a ball of sand, it does actually act on gravity. It doesn't just dangle in the air. So what we're going to do is we are going to do a new brush. So it is brush, and again it is a sphere, and we're going to do sand and not air, and we're going to make it as big as we possibly can because we want to do fairly significant bulky stuff. And then we're going to add a mask because all we want to change is air. We don't want to be changing any of the rock into sand or anything like that, so we just want air. So we're going to do mask air, nothing more complicated than that. Bang. So now when I click, I'm going to drop a sphere with a radius of 6 of sand onto this mountain. Now this is going to look rough and properly dodgy, I warn you, but you can see when you do it, you don't have to be on top of it, because frankly if you're on top of it and you do it, you're going to end up inside the sphere, and if you're inside the sphere you end up, well, you can't dig yourself out quite so easily. So it's good to do it from a distance and just start to build up the shape that you want for your mountain, and this can take a little bit of time. This is the bit that you really want to spend time doing, making sure that you've got plenty of sand shape all around where you want. It doesn't look anything like a mountain, I know, it looks very rough, but we're going to smooth this out in a bit. So I'm just going to crack on with this. So I decided just to keep the mountain range this size for now. We've got a bit of a swooping kind of combe type area there, and it's a bit higher on that side and just a little bit down on this side coming down into the water. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start to smooth this out because it's all very, well, it looks like someone's lobbed a load of balls at the place, doesn't it? So what we're going to do is we're going to put another brush on. So this is brush, and then we're going to go cylinder. And also we're going to go with sand again, and this is going to be a radius of 6. So cylinder brush equals 6 by 1. So literally what we're going to do is we're going to flop a disc of sand onto this that is 13 blocks across with a radius of 6. And then we're also going to do the same mask. So mask air. So this is what we want to do. We just want to fill it with air. We don't want to replace anything else. And then what we're going to do is we're going to create some flatter spaces. You can see we just pop this cylinder down like this, and it starts to smooth the place out a little bit, and we end up with not quite so, I don't know, ball-like areas all over the place. It makes for a much smoother feel, more natural. And if you want to, you can just hold your brush down and keep the button kind of pressed, and you get kind of lots of discs falling in on each other. If I do the same here, for example, you can just whap it across and you end up with a more natural shape. So let me just do this all across this area, and once we've done that, we'll be able to start to transform it, because last I looked, mountains tend not to be made out of sand. Now have is a fairly impressive looking mountain range, but it's like the biggest sandcastle you've ever seen, isn't it? So we need to change this up, and the easiest thing to do is to change it all into a single block. Now there's a couple of ways in which you can do that. One is if you've got the computer from heaven, which has got loads and loads of processing power, and I'll show you what you can do. So if you come down to a point, I'm coming down slowly because it's a long way. If I come down to a point here, for example, and I do //pos1, and then I come up, and I was to go to the opposite end of the mountain range, but just for the sake of argument, I'm just going to do it here, and maybe kind of here like that. So just take all of that in, and I do //pos2. I've selected that area. It's 132,000 blocks. Now I would never, no matter what your computer does, recommend going more than 1,000,000. So this mountain range is utterly out of the question. So what you can do then is //replace, and we go replace the sand like that, and we're going to replace that with grass block. Now the reason we do grass block is because if you stack grass block on top of grass block, the grass block underneath will turn to dirt, so you get all dirt underneath, and that makes more sense. So we're just going to select grass block, and I'll press enter, and that will change all of that. You can see my computer's straining under the thought of changing 132 entities all at once, but that changes those grass blocks like that in a quite a nice way. The alternative, if you've got a computer that perhaps is powered by a hamster or some other such method, you can do it in a slightly more drawn out way, and you can do this by doing brush, and we're going to make a sphere, and it's going to be a grass block, and it's going to be 6. And then we're going to mask it again so as it only replaces sand. So that's mask sand. So now what happens when we click here, that is only going to change the sand into grass blocks. And you can get a little bit more precise if you do it in this method as well, which is quite nice. So just click around on the mountain and change everything to grass blocks. So I'll be back when I've finished that. So we have got a really nicely mounded up, quite nicely shaped mountain range, but it's all in dirt. So we need to change a lot of that dirt up for stone, because obviously the mountains are going to be made out of stone. But at the moment we've still got a lot of grass blocks underneath grass blocks, so we want to wait for those to change. But while we're doing that, we're going to texture up this place with some grass and some ferns, and I'll show you a really quick way of doing that. So we're going to texture up all of this ground similarly to the plains. So we've got some grass, some ferns and some flowers. So the way we're going to do that is using another brush. Now this looks like a complicated command, but it's not. So it's brush sphere, which means we've got a brush that is a ball, and we're going to basically create this ball out of a percentage mix of different things. So what we're going to do is we're going to have 20% 31 1. Now that's the grass that you can see on the plains there. We're going to have 5% 37, that's dandelions. We're going to have 5% 38, that's poppies. 5% 38 8, which is oxeye daisy. I hope it doesn't end up being polished granite, that would be awful. And then 5% 31 2, which is ferns. Now that gives us 20, 25, 30, 35, 40% used up, and then we're going to have 60% as 0, which is air, and then we're going to do a radius of 6, and that radius of 6 is then going to give us the biggest possible sphere that we can have. Bang that, and we've got a sphere equipped. If we then start right clicking on here, you can see that I have messed up. What I've not done is put a mask on. So I slashed undid, remove that. If you make a mistake, it's dead easy. That was utterly deliberate, honest governor. So then we're going to put slash mask space greater than 2. So basically that means it's only going to place these things on top of a grass block and nowhere else. So it won't place it on water, won't place it on stone or anything like that. It'll only place it on a grass block. Just like that, you see. And if you think that's too big a mixture of flowers, you can reduce your mixture. I've decided that this brush mixture is too dense in terms of the actual flowers themselves. So I'm changing the brush up so as I've only got 1 and 2% flowers and a little bit more air. So let's change that, and you can see you can just go over in exactly the same thing. It will adjust in that sphere, and I think that reduced number of flowers makes more sense as you're going up to a mountain. Perhaps you would want that number of flowers at the base of the mountain and far less at the top. That's entirely up to you, but you can just run along over the mountain, just texturing it up a little bit so as it looks more natural, whilst you're waiting for all those grass blocks to turn into dirt so we can transform the entire mountain into a more realistic looking piece. And you can see now we've gone full overkill on those flowers. It almost looks like a flower forest biome, doesn't it, with all those flowers on it? But you could do just grass and ferns, take the flowers out. It's entirely up to you. Or you can mix it up as you go up the mountain and do what you like. Now, I think pretty much all of those grass blocks have now turned into dirt. So now we can do a very simple manipulation of the land. Come to a corner. Now, you're probably not going to catch it all, but come to one of the corners, because your computer's far more likely to be able to cope with this, and press kind of just above the level here and go // pos 1, and then come up all the way to the other side. And once you're at the other side, do // pos 2. Now, how many have we got? We've got 4 million blocks there, but we're not changing 4 million blocks. We're only changing certain blocks here. So we're going to go / replace, and we're going to choose the current block, which is dirt, and we want to replace it. We're going to go with stone, because stone is the one that's most likely to occur in nature. I'm going to press enter, and that will, over time, because I've replaced 300,000 blocks, you can see there the stone is slowly sweeping across the map. And the computer obviously will go faster the more processing speed you've got. Once you've got that, you can start to change up other blocks as well. If there are any areas of your mountain that didn't change to stone, either because they were outside of your sphere of influence or your computer just gave up, which sometimes does happen, you can obviously do it piece by piece. / brush sphere stone 6. That gives you a stone sphere brush, and then you want to mask it. Remember to mask it, otherwise you'll end up with a big ball of stone. Mask that, and you only want to do dirt. So you're just changing dirt. So if I come down here, for example, I can click on that, and that will just change that dirt to stone. And you can go around and just touch up around your mountain in the areas that you think maybe should be dirt or should be stone, but aren't. And you can just carry on doing that all the way around. So now we've got our mountain completely transformed into the stone that we want with just the grass on the top. We are now going to create a little bit of snow on top of the mountain so as it's in keeping. And we're going to do that again with another brush, and it is going to be a sphere. Sphere is the brush that you're going to use absolutely most of all. Block 78 is snow, and then we're going to, on top of that snow, have a size of 6. So that is the biggest sphere brush we can have. We're then going to mask greater than 2. So again, like the flowers and the grass, this will only place the snow on top of a grass block. So that mask is set. And then you need to decide how far up do you want to go with your snow. Now you might want to start at the top and work down. You might want to start at the bottom and work up. I'm going to start at the bottom and work up, and I'll see you when I'm done. You might also want to change up around the bottom of the mountain with a bit of gravel. Brush sphere gravel 4, so a slightly smaller sphere. That'll work. And then mask out things like grass. So grass block. That will now, if I click on here, will give gravel at the bottom of this mountain instead of grass blocks, which is a little bit more realistic. So for interest, I've placed in a few little waterfalls, one split waterfall there, one decent sized waterfall. Quite like the way that it changes colours, it goes into the swamp biome, and just a tiddly one over there. All that's left for me to do now with this is just to put in a few custom trees. Now I don't want to build the same custom tree over and over and over again, so I'm going to import some custom trees that I have done in a separate world, and I showed you how to do this in episode 3 of this particular series. So if you want to know how to get the custom trees into a schematic, then go back and see episode 3. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to load up these trees here by putting /schematic load, and the one I'm going to load first is spruce 1. So I've now loaded spruce 1, and I'm going to stand here and I'm going to put paste, and I'm going to paste in that spruce tree. You can see there that spruce tree has come along there nicely. If I come along here as well, / paste, I can stick another one of the same tree in there. So I'm just going to go around and put a few of different types of custom spruce trees in here just to see if we can't finish this fella off. So this is what we looked like before. We've got some strange angular bits jutting out all over the place. It's relatively flat and a little bit uninteresting. But however, with a little bit of work, we have turned it into this. And actually, I'm really quite pleased with the change. It's subtle in a number of areas, but in other areas it's really obvious. We've got much better mountain shaping. We've got nicer tree and foliage. It's a nicer shape. It actually looks far more natural and in keeping with the surroundings. We've got some water features. And all in all, I think that this is a much nicer terrain than the one we had before. Well, this is much nicer and much more natural, I think. If you've not seen the rest of the series from episode 1, the playlist is in the description below, so please do go and have a look and see how to get to this from the very start. If you have enjoyed this video, please do remember to slap that like button. It'd be great to know you're enjoying it, and I will keep on making them. Also, if you've not done it already, please do hit that subscribe button. It'd be great to see you in my sub club, and I look forward to seeing you in another video. You take it easy now. Bye.